I'm Sonya Morton Firth and you're watching the Sonya Morton Firth Show. Today my guest is Elliot Kay. Elliot has had one hell of a journey. He's run 3 businesses. He's been an author of 3 books and he's spent 6,000 hours on stage. Elliot has been through some really extreme adversities, including rape, depression and bankruptcy. I'm truly honoured to have him here as a guest on my show. Hi Elliot, and welcome to the show. It's an honour to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honour to be here.
Thank you. Elliot, I know that you are one of the most sought after speakers, and well, in terms of your speaking experience, you have something like 6,000 hours, as we mentioned, on stage, and you've written 3 books. But I want to get behind the Elliot Kay. Okay. Tell me a little bit more about your journey and how you got to where you've got to today.
Yeah, so it's always interesting because where do you start, right?
Yes.
You start. We always have those key moments in life that a wake-up call or something drastically changed, and I think for me it was Australia. So it's 2010, the end of 2010. Okay. And I had my best year in my business. My best year, more money than I've ever made.
And this was the speaking business or the
No, this was a coaching business. So I've run 3 businesses in my time. One was called The Coach with a Hat.
Great name.
Thank
Did you actually wear a hat?
I actually wore a hat, yes. So I was actually known as the coach. And actually recently I've been identified 3 times by people as the coach with a hat, even though I'm not the coach with a hat anymore. Yeah. So it's interesting how brands have a longevity without you realizing. So I'd made more money than I made, and it's great. And I did what every sensible man does, and I followed a woman to Australia. And I
Interesting
thought,
that. Yes, you followed the woman to Australia.
Course. Yeah, I did. Well, you know, I was very in love with her, and for me that was the beginning of our life together and our relationship together, and actually gradually everything fell apart. So I went from having the most amazing year, turning literally New Year's Eve, something in my gut was telling me that something's really wrong. But of course, we're hopeful people, we're emotional beings.
And how long had you been with her at this stage?
So not very long, but we'd been kind of in each other's space for a year, but not ever technically like an item. And then we'd finally moved forwards and the whole Australia. So I was kind of after her and finally got her, you know. And that's when it all started to fall apart.
What happened? Did you drift apart or was it a sudden...
It's interesting, isn't it? Because literally New Year's Eve, my gut was telling me something was wrong. Like, something's not right here. And we just, I don't know, it's almost like people are able to do this, like flick off a switch and turn off the emotions. So I was sensing something wasn't right. And then while that was going on, all my coaching clients finished and didn't renew. I was naive and arrogant to think that they would just carry on with me. So one source of cash flow dries up. Then I owned a property in Wales, and the bank rang me up and said, Mr. Kay, we don't think that you'll be able to sustain this, so please settle up your mortgage. And I was like, good luck with that. Gosh. And I hung up on them. And then a company I was doing some contracting for, we had this big falling out and they refused to pay me. And then to make things even more interesting, the girl I went after, she just said, look, I've got a job with this guy who happened to be a billionaire. And he said I can either work with him and be with you. And I chose to work with him. And
so everything culminated in one stage.
Within 2 weeks, yeah. This all happened in 2 weeks.
And just out of interest, all those things, which affected you the most?
Oh, definitely losing her. It's interesting, isn't it?
Relationships are the hardest things.
Yeah.
It's the things I think people take for granted and don't realise how much they can hurt.
Yeah, and it's just, I guess, you know, and I've learned a lot since, but I think part of it was I elevated her so much in my mind, and I was so like, wow, that it creates an imbalanced relationship anyway, right? So of course when that happened, and you know, we're friends now, and in effect it's with gratitude that it happened, but of course at the time it doesn't feel that way, right? So when we had that conversation, you know, hey, we need to talk, it's not you, it's me kind of thing, I just remember I left the where we were staying, and I just walked along a cliff in Bondi Beach, and there's a moment there's where you kind of go, you step over a fence and you're literally staring down into the sea.
Okay.
And that was we talk about key moments.
Yes.
That was my key moment of yelling into the wind. It's almost like a Hollywood movie,
Yeah,
right?
no,
and I was like, why me? You know, why me? One of those moments. And that's kind of also the moment, I guess, an epiphany where it was like this inner voice said, you know, this is your opportunity to truly be an example. And this is your opportunity to truly live your promise and fulfill your purpose. You're being called to step up. That didn't make it any easier, but at least it gave me some inner peace.
And when you say step up and your inner purpose, did you know at that point what that was?
Yeah, I did. I mean, step up meant really looking back, and even at the time, I've got to deal with my stuff around money, you know, because clearly what was evident that I had issues unconsciously, subconsciously with money. Why did this happen? You know, why am I losing everything I've made plus everything I'm invested in? I clearly have problems with love. Why is love rejecting me?
Had you had problems before with love?
Massive. Okay. And I think because I opened up, a part of me felt entitled that because I've opened up, then surely it'll come back. And no, I wasn't ready to welcome real love. And we'll get to that in a minute.
Yes, no, because that's interesting.
Yeah, and then, so money, love, relationships, you know, and to truly step up to be the leader that I guess I was putting out that I was. And I never lied. It wasn't a case of me lying. I was third in Britain's Next Top Coach. I'd written a book. I was very prolific in the coaching world, or in the UK anyway. But it was like, look, it allowed me to develop a greater depth of empathy and understanding versus going, well, you can just get over it, you know. I just really need to itch my nose. I'm so sorry.
You go for it. That's fine.
So sorry. Okay.
So all of these things, money, relationships, love, and you stepping up to be the Elliot Kay who you were meant to be. And I think that was the epiphany at that moment.
Yeah, and to really lead by example. And I think a lot of times when we are in the coaching world, we're taught coaching and we're taught, well, you know, to model and stuff. But to truly embody it and live in it, for me, it took that. And actually, it also made me realize that I hadn't truly dealt with the sexual abuse that I suffered as a kid. So there's massive realization all on this cliff. And I remember I got back and it was hours later, but of course at the time it just felt like minutes had gone by. And then I realized, okay, let's start healing, let's start dealing with this. And it's that set me, I guess, on the path I am today. So it's a long answer to your original question.
You mentioned the sexual abuse that you suffered as a kid. Do you mind talking
not at
us
all.
about, because that sounds like another low point in your life. What happened?
Yeah, it's really, you know, it's interesting because I'm okay talking about it because I've dealt with any emotional charge around it and I'm completely aware of what happened and I respect the event, which is why I don't have a problem. It's in my book. So what happened, I was 12 years old and I was very gullible, and I don't know if you remember, but I remember what I was wearing on the day. I remember all how it happened.
And they say when you've got the emotions and the feelings attached to it, you remember everything.
Yeah, and I just, you know, it's not something you forget, you know, like, it's just, I guess, like an accident or something, like everything slows down, right? So you suddenly become completely conscious of everything. And I remember I was crossing a zebra crossing and I was wearing blue shorts. And do you remember the kind of the string vests that were really cool?
Yes.
Well, I don't know if they're ever,
a long time ago.
I don't know if they were ever really cool. I don't know if they were cool, but they were fashionable at a certain point. Anyway, I was wearing that and I had my inhaler tucked in because my shorts didn't have any pockets. Yeah. And this guy just stopped me. He went, "Oh, you're asthmatic." Now, of course, you look back and go, "Oh, it's so obvious." He went, "I went, how do you know?" And he went, "Oh, I'm a doctor." I was like, "Oh, anyway, I'll give you the short version." But he got talking, and then he started saying, "You know, do you like girls? Do you like girls?" And he started telling me that, you know, he can't go a day without being with a girl. Does he want me to, you know, does he want to sort me out with a girl? Shall I, you know, he's like, "I can sort you out with a girl. I can hook you up. Do you want to be hooked up?" So I've got a girl waiting for you right now if you follow me. Right? So you can see where this is going. So then I follow him and we go through this alleyway.
And you were 12 years old, right?
12 years old, yeah. So we went through this alleyway and then we went up this block of flats. And it's interesting because it was half finished. and then there was like an empty flat that wasn't finished at the top. And so we're going up, and I'm going, this is weird. And then, he goes, follow me, they're upstairs. I've got a mattress all sorted. And then went upstairs, and he kind of, he did what he did. And it's interesting instinct when it kicks in. And even as a kid, I just remember going, my mum's going to be looking for me. That's what came out.
Did you
of my
say
mouth.
that to
Yeah.
Did you scream or fight?
Well,
or?
you're kind of not sure what to do, so I kind of froze. And I remember because he was doing stuff, and actually, the predominant thought for me at the time was, "Don't get hard, don't get hard." That's literally what was going through my mind. Don't get hard, literally. He's doing all kinds of horrible, and I was like,
Yes, wow,
yeah.
that's like.
And that's literally
To
the thought
have that going through your mind at the point of. Yeah.
And then I went, my mum's going to be looking for me. And he literally jumped back and ran away. Actually, and before he ran away, he said, meet me tomorrow at 4 and I'll bring you an actual girl. And here's the interesting, I went home, I go in the bath, I put aftershave, because I saw it was disinfectant all over my bits. And obviously I had to clean. And I kind of, something wrong's happened, but you're not sure, like, is that not? You kind of know something bad, but you can't quite process it. And ironically, I went back the next day at 4.
You went back?
Yeah. And only then did it really hit me what actually happened. I mean, it wasn't like I didn't know that something bad, but that I was used. That I think it was more curiosity what he shot. I borrowed a bike.
And weren't you scared or?
I don't know, I was very
safety?
confused. I think a part of me was hopeful that he was being genuine, because actually one of his leading lines was, I need to see how big you are.
Oh my God.
So I can find you the right girl. And so a part of me really wanted to believe that that's why it happened. I know, it's very naive, right? So it's just
When you were
like...
12 years old.
Yeah, and so, but then of course I locked that away for years. I didn't tell anyone after that. I never told anyone what happened till I was, when was it? I was 19.
Did he show up again?
No.
No.
Of course not. I can remember what he wore, I can remember what he looked like, but I just locked it away. And then when I was 19, actually, I was working at a famous burger chain.
Which will remain nameless.
As a student. And actually, the manager there, I guess being banterous and innocent, he came to the back and then he grabbed my bit and went, "Are you a man?" And he was a big Nigerian guy. And I went, "Yes, thank you." But that brought it all back, and I'm like that.
Yeah, manhandling you again.
And so it's almost like I parked it, and then from that, obviously I raised the complaint, and they moved me. But that's when I told my parents, and that's when I actually sought counselling for it. I decided to deal with it, and then I thought I'd fully deal with it, and then obviously I hadn't, because I had such a broken relationship with intimacy and with letting people in, and with love.
And how did that actually manifest itself in your relationships or with people that you loved? Did you just close up and put this barrier up? Was that part of it?
Yeah, I think all along for many years I had a wall around my heart. But I kind of went to two extremes. I went for being a bit of a slag, and just literally, again, maybe I was being a typical boy. I don't know, but I just... There was no emotional. There's like sex.
So you were totally detached.
Yeah, very detached, and I'd never really had a girlfriend for years. And then, of course, when I did have a girlfriend, I wasn't very particularly nice. I wasn't abusive. I just wasn't a nice guy, and I admit that now. And that carried on for a long time, actually. I even took a year of celibacy. Like I had no sex 1 year because I felt like I needed to respect women more, and I needed to really appreciate them beyond
just being a sexual being. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that shifted, that created my ability to say no, because before that I was just any girl, anything.
Out in bars, whatever. One night stands. Yeah.
Very lots of them, right? And then I was like, no, and then when it wasn't right, I'd say no, but that doesn't mean that I was in any way emotionally mature. I think, and I went through a history of kind of, I was the typical, look, we can let this happen, but don't expect anything. That was always my line. Yeah. And of course...
But at least you were honest up front, right? There are a lot of guys out there that aren't honest up front, and they'll tell you a story, and actually, if they just come out with it, at least you know what you're getting.
Yeah, but then, of course, women being... Not all women... they stick around and they fall, and then I think I had a responsibility then to cut it, and then, of course, I'd be like... but I told you nothing's going to happen, and they become hopeful. So I think
it's very difficult for a woman to separate their emotions.
Right.
It just, unfortunately, we are built differently.
Very, and I think looking back, I probably had a responsibility then to go, okay, step back, but I would string them along, and of course that was a nice experience for them, and that's not the guy I want. I'm not now, of course, and that's not the guy I'm proud of. There's one particular person I can think of who I really ended up massively hurting. And then when that happened, actually, in Australia, she's one of the people I reached out to apologise.
I was going to say, have you forgiven yourself?
Yes, I have, and
let that go.
Yeah, I have, and she made it very hard for me to apologise. Rightly so, because I was so horrible. And so that moment in Australia was, again, the beginning of me dealing with all of that stuff. The intimacy issue, the locked heart, the relationship and the relationship with myself. And it took a few months, and it took until probably I met Emily. When did I meet Emily? In June.
This is now your wife.
This is now my wife.
And you're happily married now with children.
Yes, exactly. There is a happy ending. When did I meet her? No, it was the summer. So I think it was August I met her. And I did, so throughout the year, it's interesting because I tried so many coaching techniques to deal with stuff.
And you're a coach, so,
at the time I was,
and I'm a coach, but there's one thing being a coach, but coaching yourself, and you know the answers, and you deep down, you know what, in theory, you should be doing.
Right.
But actually putting that in practice on yourself, I find incredibly difficult.
Well, I did use a lot of the coaching techniques. I had coaches. I don't coach anymore, but at the time I was a coach, which adds pressure, right? Because then you get the whole imposter syndrome. How can I coach people if I can't manage my own life, if my business is falling apart, and that didn't help. And so obviously I had coaches, and I slowly turned around the business. And then actually, when I finally got over her, I did the John DeMartini collapse method. His breakthrough.
I did DeMartini last year.
Did you?
Changed my life.
Right, and
completely changed my life.
That moment when you leave that room, and I was like, oh, I just don't feel anything. It wasn't like I had a big sobbing breakthrough, or it's just like, oh, I just don't feel anything. A month later, I met Emily, and then now we're together. Another kid on the way.
Who did you collapse? So for the audience, there's a process that you go through, and really letting go and forgiving everything that's happened to you in the past.
And you collapse absolutely any emotional attachment. It was the Australian lady.
It was the Australian lady. Okay.
And then a month later I met Emily, and then a month later we got together. We've been together ever since. And even though I still had a little residue towards like, is this going to last? Is it not? We always made a commitment to be open and honest and communicate, and that's lasted throughout our whole relationship. Literally, we can count on one hand how many arguments we've had. It's not that we don't agree on everything, but literally explosive arguments I can literally count on one hand. And, in a way it led me to meet Emily. But of course at the time, you don't see it. I was very angry, very resentful. I felt the universe was isolating me and all this kind of stuff.
So is there any one thing, if you were going to give anyone advice in terms of love and relationships, if they're feeling that, or if they've got this series of unfortunate relationships, or it's just not working, what could they do to mend a broken heart, for want of a better word, or open their hearts to real love? Is there anything that you...
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a relationship expert.
No,
I just want to qualify that. I can only go from what I did. And
from your own experience. Yeah.
I think for me, I had to deal with so much at once. So obviously the relationship aspect, but also the collapsing of the business, and I had to be turning that around. I think there's two things. A is to really, you got to face up. There's no way around it. Just really, and it's hard, when you face yourself every day and you look in the mirror and you're not seeing the image of who you want to be or who you could be, but it's the perseverance through that actually creates or builds you into that person that you want to be or you could be, right? The other thing is, of course, seek help. This isn't something to do on your own. It's something that... And you might need multiple different types of help. You might need counselling as well as coaching, or you might need psychotherapy. It really doesn't matter, but I think the important part is to seek help.
To seek help.
And that's really important. Don't isolate yourself, which is a temptation to pull back. I mean, when it happened to me, I don't think I left the house. I think you heard the story that it was when Anik actually sent me the email. And actually that was the first time I left the house in a month. Even though I was working the business and I was doing stuff, I would just hide in my room in Acton, up the road from where we are now. And seek help, persevere. And, you've got to fight. You've got to fight through it. And I think in this day and age with the instant gratification and stuff like that, you've got to allow the fight to come through, and you've got to put up the fight, because at the end of it, it is worth it, and as cliche as that is, and I can't tell you how long it might take someone, at the end of it does lie a reward, and maybe that reward is just being able to look in the mirror and feel happy with yourself. I'm not saying you'll find the partner that you love, or but you'll find peace, contentment, fulfillment with who you are, and I think that's the greatest reward.
It's that loving yourself thing that we come
and
back to.
That would be my advice, but I'm not a relationship expert in any way, even though I've written a book about relationships.
And what's the book called? We'll come back to your
You're
books
Right
at
to
the
Be
end.
Wrong in Relationships.
Ah.
But I was going through all of this when I wrote it, and I can't remember writing a single word. And I wrote it with someone else, a female coach.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's not a book we often push out there. Neither of us, for some reason.
I think relationships is such an important part of life, and we don't give it enough.
Yeah.
That's your relationship history. You've touched on your money issues and bankruptcy. And today, you're co-owner of a very successful business, Speakers Express.
Yeah.
How did you get over those various different hurdles, from bankruptcy to losing everything in your business and going on to now being owning a very successful business?
Good question. Ironically, there's two aspects. There's one, how do you build the business, and then there's two, how do you have a relationship with money? And of course, like relationships, money is such a magnifier of our insecurities or what's going on with us. And ironically, once I dealt with a lot of my issues around relationships, it also fixed my relationship with money. Because if you treat money like your ideal, beautiful partner, and you invest in it, and you respect it, and you allow it to flow, and you accept it goes two ways, and you treat it energetically, and it might sound a bit fluffy to some of your viewers, but you treat it.
I absolutely love it, and I'm looking at all of this myself as well. I completely agree with that.
And you treat it like, your ideal, your wife. You treat it like your wife or your partner in a way that you allow the relationship to grow, in a way that you welcome it, in the way that you respect it. Then that's when things shifted around money for me. I mean, one of the things I did do, I don't know if you've ever done this, and you're very welcome, is I know you've done Gestalt, right? So I took kind of Gestaltian NLP type approach, and I actually had a conversation with money. So I would sit and talk to money as me, and then I would sit as money and talk back to you.
Did you actually put a £10 note on the chair or something?
No, just imaginary, right? And then I put the chairs like that, and we had a conversation. Then, of course, you had the wise one, who kind of brought us together. And actually I used to do this in my seminars, Power to Succeed. And you know what? We used to have people absolutely in tears, banging the floor, because money is such a conflicted relationship. We grow up with it. And I grew up with a mother that was a workaholic, with a father that was an alcoholic. So money was always hard work or not there.
So you saw it as you say, it was hard work or wasn't there. And
so I push it away, just like women.
Away. Yeah.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
So once I dealt with that,
complete parallel. Yeah.
Yeah. So even though I'd made, even when I sold my flat in Leeds, I made loads of money. I went and spent 10 grand. It's like, and then I invested the other one in a place in Cardiff, which then bankrupted me, right?
But at least you invested, right? So
right. That was mainly because of my mum, to be honest. Otherwise, she's like, I'm not having you spend all this money. You need to invest. It's like, okay, mum. Yeah. And so ironically, when I started to welcome it in, then it stayed, and then it stuck around, and then I attracted more. In terms of turning the business around, I really started to look at what do successful businesses do, and I really started to look at what do all the common successful leaders do, and even big businesses.
Success leaves clues, as they say.
Right, always, as does failure, right?
Yeah.
And whether you call it failure or a learning experience really depends, however you want to frame it. And then I really started to look at strategy. And then I actually studied strategy. And I started to work with a strategist versus a business coach or a business mentor. I guess he was a business mentor. And he approached things very non-emotionally. He wouldn't let you be emotional in sessions. He'll be like, look, you'll be emotional, there's the door, come back when you're ready.
Wow.
So it's all about the strategy.
Yes.
And that's what helped me turn the business around. So collectively, all coming together allowed me then to rebuild the coaching business, launch Power to Succeed, which became a very successful seminar at the time. And then, but I'd always, at the same time, was working with Speaker Express, then it's called Pony Express Speakers Club. Yeah. And then it was really hard, again, it was hard work, it was graft, it was perseverance, but it's the willingness to understand that things don't always work out, and if you launch something once, it might not work out, but you can go back and launch it again, while a lot of people tend to change very quickly when something doesn't work, or they don't get all the likes they want or need, or the clients they want straight away, because it just doesn't work that way, and you learn that through doing things strategically. I know a lot of people are like, yeah, just have a passion, just, hey, you just make a committed decision and it will happen. I get that, yes.
But that's part of it. It's a big part of it, but you need the strategy. And
you need the strategy, you need the perseverance, you need the consistency, you need to be willing to fail to learn how to succeed. And
the flexibility when things go wrong, I think that's quite key as well.
And that's how I kind of turned it all around. So I started doing strategy, then I pivoted, I actually stopped becoming the coach with a hat, and then launched a strategy business for coaches, speakers, trainers, and consultants. I did that. And then last year when I came out of depression, I was like, you know what? My heart's not in strategy anymore. I don't feel that's my direction anymore.
You mentioned depression. This was last year.
Last year, yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about you'd hit a depression. This was...
Yeah.
You were with your wife, the love situation.
Really happy episode,
this is a very good episode. Have a happy episode.
Yeah. So what happened? Again, you have those key moments. I won't forget it. It was my 42nd birthday. I know you can't tell. I know I look 21.
You look amazing. Thanks. Absolutely amazing. Thanks. I just go down. As soon as I hit 40, it's all going down now. I'm now, 35 again.
Again. Yeah, me too. I'm 21 again. But hey, it was my 42nd birthday, and I just woke up and I was feeling really hollow. Like, really hollow. We had just, previously launched in LA. That was a success on one point, but it wasn't not successful on another point. We did very well, but it was a lot of hard work, and a lot of money was spent launching in LA. We came back to the UK. It was a pilot, right? But the idea was to run the pilot, to make money, then to move to America. Now, what became very apparent when I came back is we're not moving to America. I had a chat with my mentor at the time, very, very famous guy that we both know. He's like, I'm telling you not to do it. He's like, just don't do it. You'll blow more money and you'll get the same results. I was like, okay. 42nd birthday, woke up. I just had this comparison program going on. I felt very hollow. I felt like I hadn't achieved what I was meant to achieve by this point in life. I wasn't living in the house I wanted to live. I was very, I had a beautiful wife, beautiful kid. And then I didn't realize I was depressed till months later. But I kept going to very dark places in my mind. I never took out on Emily. I never took out on my girl. Monday's daddy, daughter day. I always maintained that commitment. If anything, I used it to kind of allow unconditional love. Because when she was 1, she doesn't get what's going. She just knows daddy, and daddy's fun, right? Yeah. But then every time I looked at her terrible low self-esteem issues, can I be the dad that I meant to be? Can I provide? And that carried on for months. It didn't affect the business. Most people didn't know what was going on. I wasn't hiding it. I didn't know how to articulate it.
And how was it manifesting itself? I mean, other than this feeling that you were having, was there any other signs?
I was just...
Physical signs?
No, touch wood. No. Right? No physical signs. I was just... Lots of, it's that screaming voice in your head. It's those continuous voices in your head. It's very dark thoughts. It's lack of...
When you say dark thoughts?
Very dark.
Killing yourself?
Potentially, yeah. Okay. Suicidal, just going to very dark places.
I hear a lot of this at the moment, and without wanting to sound sexist, but with men.
Yeah, I agree
with men.
I agree.
Why do you think that is?
I just spent some time this weekend with a friend of mine who came up from America, and also I stayed at a friend of mine, and all of us were talking about dealing with depression. I think there's a magnified pressure with not just with social media generally. I think the role of male has evolved and changed. I can't define it, but I think a lot of men are lost.
I think they are. I completely agree with
you.
The
macho image isn't quite the thing anymore. Like, hey, let's be the man.
No, because we've all been told, oh, you need to get in touch with your emotions.
And then there's I'm meant to be more emotional, but that's not me. Who am I? And I think that creates a lot of identity issues, and I think there's a lot, again, maybe I'm not the only one that probably goes through the comparison program in our mind. I don't mean like an official program, a lot of men reach a certain point, they look at themselves and go, I'm not where I want to be, I'm not who I'm meant to be, I'm not with who I want to be, I don't look like the one, and that creates a big spiral. Everyone talks about the depression spiral. My friend who I took, he suffered it for 18 months.
Wow, that's a long time.
I know, and he talked about being suicidal. The only thing that kept him alive was his cat.
Well,
you know, yeah.
It's a cat. Cats can be
You're
fantastic.
right, exactly.
Yeah,
but he was willing. You know, he's not married, but he was okay with his nephews. He's like his brothers. It was the cat that kept him alive. So for me, no, it wasn't physically. It was an absolute lack of seeing positivity. That I made myself several. I knew something wasn't right, so I made a commitment. Always wash. Right.
Always wash.
Always wash.
Wow,
Because one of
okay,
the key things of depression is people don't wash. They don't get out of bed. Always wash. Always honour your commitments. So I would never miss a commitment, and I would always make the effort to do it, even though sometimes I just wanted to stay in bed. And for me, it's interesting because I had coaches, I had this, I had that, and I just remember it was a Friday. I was travelling into London, and I could just feel my soul. It was yelling. I was going, I need to listen to prayer music, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting on a train to Waterloo, and I'm going through my Spotify, and I'm looking for prayer music, and I'm putting prayer music on, and that's when I go in touch with a friend of mine, and she's a spiritual healer. She's a bit crazy in a good
They
way.
all are, aren't they?
They all are.
But they're incredibly
But I sent her this
helpful.
long message, and she said, "Oh, I've been waiting for you because I've known you're going to be in touch with me." I was like, "What? If you knew it, why didn't you say anything?" No, you had to be ready.
You have to come to them, and
yeah. So anyway, and I worked with her for a few months, and she brought me out of it. So I didn't go on medication, and then when I came out of that, back to the original point, I was like, you know what, strategy is not for me anymore.
Okay, well, that's something great that came from it. I
Yeah,
guess. It's
I
like
mean, I
that
had
knowledge.
clients and stuff, and so then this year I've been closing it down slowly, and then I moved fully into Speaker Express, which I've been giving it my full attention now, and then looking to now grow and scale that.
So, Elliot, it's such a fascinating story. And where you are today, where do you want to take the business? I mean, what do you see for yourself over the next, say, 5 years?
I definitely want to take it to be a global brand. So fingers crossed we're going to launch in Australia next year, and then potentially several other countries as we go. You know, for me, it's about two things. I just want to be a great dad and a great husband. You know, if we talk about the purpose back then to the purpose now, that's shifted.
So a lot of benefits came out of your low points in life.
A lot, from so many, and it's just, I don't know, it's just part of life, isn't it? I don't think I'm in any way special. There's people who have it so much worse than me. There's people who have it a lot better than me, but it's not competition. We can only deal with our hard. You know, I heard that expression. It's great. I was watching this guy. He's done
Our hard.
Our hard. Yeah, HARD. Our hard. That sounds like
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating because he did 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states. Have you heard of him?
I haven't, but I'd like to interview him, so let me know where
We'll
he
get
is.
in touch. It's on Netflix. He's known as the Iron Cowboy. And he said, you know, he talked about his hard. And for the last 10 races, his mum would meet him and run with him. And all she did was 5K. But that was her hard.
Yeah, of course.
And he said, my hard wasn't any different or better or worse than her hard. And that's what I really love. It's like we all have our hard.
I like it.
Which is a mouthful to say.
No, but it's lovely.
And that's it. It's our hard. And I'm grateful. You know, this year's been great. I've had very little, if none, sign of the depression. Our relationship's booming with both my daughter and my wife. The business is growing after. It was the right thing to let go of the strategy business and just focus solely on this. That comes with its own challenges, but that's part of life, isn't it? And that's it, really. It's just acceptance of that.
Elliot, where can people hear more about you? Where can people find out about you? I know you've written 3 books.
Yeah, so I think, for the book, it's Amazon. If they put Power to Succeed in, that's got everything we talked about. I don't have a personalised website anymore because I'm all about Speaker Express now. So they go to speakerexpress.co.uk or look on social media. I've pulled back from social media, so you can find me, Elliot Kay. No, I am Elliot Kay is kind of the handle for Facebook. I'm off Instagram. I think that's on LinkedIn. If people want to find me on LinkedIn, is Elliot Kay.
And we'll put this in the show notes, and we'll put
Put
Speaker
in the show
Express
notes.
as
Yeah,
well, because they're a fantastic company.
Thank you.
To work for. Finally, my last question, and I ask this to all my guests. If you were to write a message in a bottle to be found by future generations, what would that message be?
That's a great question. I think the message would be, and it's what's stood out for me throughout everything that I've been through, is just be the best version of yourself at that time. And if that best version of yourself is getting out of bed and washing because you're suffering from depression, but you're doing the basics, and that's the best version of yourself at the time, great. If the best version of yourself is out there impacting, changing millions of lives, great. But just daily sharp as the best version of yourself. And I think that's the best message I've got from everything I've been through.
That's beautiful. Elliot, thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.